All right, so we are starting They Say, I Say this week. I'm going to be going over the introduction and part one today, and then telling you what it is, the question that you're going to be responding to, and then doing two follow-up responses as well. So the first thing, Graff and Birkenstein state that the best academic writing has one underlying feature. It is deeply engaged in some way with other people's views. So, and to frame that for what that looks like for our research paper, in order to deeply engage with the views of scholars, you need to spend time first listening to their arguments and understanding the larger conversation that argument exists in, so that you can respond in a way that actually extends those conversations rather than repeats what's already been said. So that's the whole goal with conversations made within the academy. They need to not the conversations made with arguments of the writing done within the university. The major goal is to produce knowledge, to extend conversations and show us where is there room to keep having these discussions in academic ways that leads to new knowledge. And so a prerequisite for that is that you spend time doing research in the specific conversations you're looking at, right? Reading the abstracts and introductions that outline the problem of several articles, more than just the 5 that you're using for this paper, but that you also, in addition to that, really spend time on each of the articles, listening to what they're saying, doing your research, right? That's why there's research paper pacing each week that really hones in on, so this week you should have this many out of the 5 articles read, right? A lot of times students speed past the reading and jump into the writing because that's the major task that they're turning in. But the main thing I really want to reiterate, first and foremost, is that you cannot expect to write deeply about something if you do not spend the time in the readings, really understanding the author's arguments, the studies, etc. So the other thing in the introduction I want to hit on is Graff and Birkenstein state that critical thinking and writing go deeper than any set of linguistic formulas, requiring that you question assumptions, develop strong claims, offer supporting reasons and evidence, support opposing arguments, etc. So they take time they're talking about how useful the templates are, right? But then they take time to say that these are just linguistic formulas, right? Like good writing is not just a matter of incorporating the right or enough templates. The templates, rather, they're not good writing in themselves. Rather, they're setting you up to enter into academic conversations and write well about it, right? So that's the goal of the templates that I also want to focus on, that you can lean into them as much as you would like, or if you would like a little bit more creative freedom in making academic arguments, definitely look at what kind of move the template is allowing you to do, how it's allowing you to speak, and feel free to completely, find a different wording for that. So the next chapter, starting with what others are saying, Graff and Birkenstein state that to give writing a point, a writer needs to clearly indicate not only their thesis, but also what larger conversation their thesis is responding to. This is so important, and we stress it again, because in academic writing, the whole goal, like we said, is to extend conversations. Synthesizing the research that has come before is the prerequisite, what needs to come first in order for you to enter in and engage, right? The idea is if you aren't, then you're just repeating what other people have said. You need to understand what arguments have already been made so you can build upon that. A couple templates associated with this move are below. There's tons of them. They have them sections based off of what exactly you're doing. Those are just a few that I personally use that I wanted to highlight. So summarizing, the art of summary. Graff and Birkenstein talk about how writing a good summary is about balancing what the original author is saying with your own voice, stepping into their shoes, playing the believing game, giving a fair representation of their work. However, at the same point, don't start arguing their case if you're only using this article to show, like, this is not what I think, right? They talk about put a spin on it. Always keep in mind where you're going and how you're intending to use this source for your own purposes. That's one of the most important parts, I feel like, of the artist summary when you're dealing with sources that you either completely disagree with or, some combination of both. Some verbs for introducing a summary that aren't really tapped into a lot that I thought could be very useful. She advocates for, acknowledges, reminds us, suggests, contends, emphasizes, refutes, implores, recommends. Definitely in your initial drafts, start with argues, says, states, the common ones that students go to. But after you are doing some revising, look and think, is there a verb that's a little bit more rhetorically accurate that would fit better here? So the art of quoting. Components for a frame for every major quotation. Who said it? Then the quote, obviously. An explanation of the quote, and then how it fits your project. So the explanation of the quote and how it fits your project are usually the two that are left out. Sometimes who said is as well. The explanation of the quote can easily be taken care of by just saying, in other words, or by this the author is saying or getting at, etc. Right? Below, if you would like to pause and look at an example of what this looks like. I pulled this from Writing About Writing. This is not like the right answer for the art of quoting. It's just an example of anybody who might be wondering, so what does this actually look like, right? So here's the quote. I pulled a quote from that, and I said, Downes extends the common understanding of rhetoric as he describes the term as referring to a set of principles that explain and predict how people make meaning and interact. In other words, for Downes, rhetoric is a site for meaning making through interaction. This speaks to the issue of the function of teaching rhetoric in first-year writing course, ... right? So I pretended that was my topic. And so that's me linking what the quote I pulled to my larger topic, essentially. All right, so questions for discussion. You're doing initial response and 2 peer responses. In your initial response, in what ways is the writing advice that Graff and Birkenstein outlined similar and different to what you've previously learned about writing? What about the types of writing you've previously been asked to do in school? And then also underneath that, if you could say, if you had any questions you came across for your reading that I can clarify or address. Just anything that you wish, if like we were in class, you would respond and say, hey, I came across this in class. What did he mean by that? Or I know you just explained that, but can you explain it again in a different way? I'm having difficulty understanding. All right, so I want to give that opportunity this week as well. Okay, so you're doing the initial response and responding to 2 others.